WOKB, Winter Garden, Orlando.
Orlando, this is Dr. Michael Phillips.
And this is Dr. Samantha.
We're back.
Right here on WOKB, every Friday at 4:45 p.m.
Tune into the Kingdom Life radio show right here on WOKB.
Every Friday at 4:45. You can visit us online at kingdomlifeorlando.com.
This is Dr. Pam Powell, the P Factor, a.k.a. the Hope Doctor. Tune in each and every Tuesday morning at 8:10 a.m. right here at WOKB 1680 Gospel Music Channel during the Yolanda Adams Morning Show. And get your dose of hope. The Hope Doctor will be in the house. And I'll see you at the TOP because that's where God wants all of us to be. So tune in for a dose of hope with Dr. Pam Powell, Tuesdays, 8:10 a.m. on the Gospel Music Channel 1680.
As many times he's put bread on my table, as many times as he's opened doors for me, as many times as he's heard my cry, as many times as he's held my hand, I want to see the Lord. I'm not interested in what you're doing. I want to see Jesus. I want to let somebody know the Lord is my strength and my life. The Lord is my shepherd.
It's the Bethel Missionary Baptist Church radio ministry, Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. with Pastor Riley Murray Jr. right here on Gospel 1680.
Hallelujah. This is Deacon John Robinson with Continual Praise. Tune in every Thursday from 4:45 to 5 p.m. for your weekly CPR broadcast here on Gospel 1680 WOKB.
This is Evangelist Louis C. Brown Jr. of the Reconciling Men Back to God radio ministry. I invite you to listen each and every Sunday morning at 8:15, station WOKB. You will be blessed.
Blessed is she that believed, for there shall be a performance of those things which were told her from the Lord. Hi, this is Mary Pitts. Tune in every Thursday at 11:30 a.m. to Mary Pitts Live, where we're focusing on building and maintaining relationships right here at 11:30 a.m. on Gospel 1680 WOKB.
Visit WOKBradio.com. WOKBradio.com. We're in touch with the upcoming events in and around our community. The official voice of Central Florida. On the air and online. WOKBradio.com.
Welcome to another edition of Real Family Talk. This is your host, Jay Real. Hope everybody's having a great Tuesday night. Hello. Welcome to Real Family Talk. This is your host, Jay Real, man. It's another great Wednesday evening. I've had an even better day today. I was off, didn't have to go to work, didn't have to make that 4-hour drive. So that is awesome. Just that alone makes me feel happy. But yeah, man, we're going to get into the show here. Just go ahead and welcome everybody that's in the building with us tonight. Mr. King's in the building. How you doing, Mr. King?
All right. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. And then we got Jamba. Jamba's back in the building with us. How you doing, Jamba?
I'm well. I'm good.
And then from Community Bonding, we got Brother E joining us tonight. How you doing, Brother E?
I'm doing great, sir. Excited to be here.
Oh, that's awesome, man. We're going to get right into it tonight. We got a lot to talk about. I want to put as much time to kind of get these topics out there so that you can respond and talk with us, give us your opinion about what's happening. Remember, the number is 407-894-1680, 407-894-1680. So first, I got to go to the best time of the year as far as I'm concerned, and I swear they're trying to ruin it for me. But the NFL, man, they're They're trying to kill the NFL right now for some reason, man. Like what the players are doing is so far-fetched and so out to the left of where society is, for that matter. But they're trying to kill it. The latest, of course, is the new topic is Adrian Peterson. That's the latest topic. Adrian Peterson, if you did not hear, Adrian Peterson has a 4-year-old. And sometime over the summer, the 4-year-old was hanging out with him at his house. The 4-year-old did something wrong, and Adrian Peterson apparently believes in using switches. So he took his switch and gave his 4-year-old a bit of a whooping, if you will. The problem was, though, when the child went back home, apparently the switch left some whelps. Can't even say that word today. Some whelps on him. And so when the mother apparently had to take him to the doctor saw the whelps, and, as they do at the hospital, they see something. They called Children's Services. So Children's Services got involved, and now he is being indicted for child abuse at this point. So we're wondering that the league basically responded by initially gave him 1 game suspension for last week. And then they initially said this week, we're going to let him come back. And then yesterday, the news came out after the governor of Minnesota and some of the state senators of Minnesota and others stepped up and were like, that's wrong. They shouldn't be bringing this guy back. He's a child abuser, blah, blah, blah. So they made the decision yesterday to put him on another suspension, which basically is kind of being suspended without pay is the end result. So he gets paid. They get nice publicity or PR effect for the team, and we're left wondering what is appropriate when it comes to beating. That's the question that we're trying to answer, and it's all over the place. You have Charles Barkley is out there. He's talking about how this is what black people do in the South. And so if what Adrian Peterson did was wrong, then you got a whole lot of mamas and daddies that should be in jail right now. That's kind of what Charles Barkley's statement was on it. And I want to talk to the panel. We'll talk to the panel. We want to talk to you. Give me a call. 407-894-1680 is the number, 407-894-1680. What do you think? Was Adrian Peterson wrong? Is he a child abuser? Should he be, at this point, potentially facing a jail sentence for essentially disciplining his son? Granted, it was with a switch, and you have a lot of people have different opinions about that. But at the end of the day, he was disciplining his son. Is he a child abuser now because he used a switch that left some whelps on him? What y'all got to say, man?
Well, I say this right here. I'm a fan of corporal punishment. I really am. But I will suggest that based on the pictures that you showed me, he left marks. And, when I've heard people talking about this subject, J-Real, people always go back, well, when I was growing up, this was what we did. This was this and this was this. Well, it's a new day. It's a new day. You can't do those things that mom and dad used to do back in the day. You're talking about most people 20 years ago. Well, that's just the fact. You can't do it. Based on the pictures you showed me, I never seen the photos before, but based on the pictures that were shown, I do have an issue with that because he's a 4-year-old. What did a 4-year-old do? Now, I can understand tapping his bottom. I have not a problem with that, open hand tapping his bottom. But based on those pictures, I have major concerns. And the only excuse that we can provide is that when I was growing up back in the day, well, those are issues back in the day. We had different laws back in the day. The understanding of the law was different back in the day. So, and plus, based on the letter of the law, he tore the skin. Mm-hmm. Adrian Peterson is an NFL football player going up against a 4-year-old kid. I have an issue with that. I definitely have an issue with that.
I don't even think I agree, that whole back in the day thing does not apply, because if back in the day you was getting beat to the point that it left scars that till this day, now and today, that you still have to show for that, then that wasn't right back then, it's not right now. No, I still have yet to know exactly what happened, because I know in one of the cases he said that the little boy hit his head on the car seat or something, and if he would have sat still or something, then the scars wouldn't be there or whatever he said. No. And it's not even a fact of, okay, yeah, I beat my child. No, you took it to another level where that's not going anywhere, and you're still not even, you have yet to say, I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't have took it that far. I probably shouldn't have did that. I probably shouldn't have nothing.
Well, to be fair, he actually did admit, because there was a grand jury on this, and the grand jury decided to indict. But in the grand jury, he apparently admitted that he did go too far in the whooping. And then he also admitted it in the press. He talked about that as well. And he even said that to the baby's mother. So he admitted that he went too far, and perhaps in the beating, looking at it in hindsight. But that's my question. If he can acknowledge that he was slightly wrong, to me, child abuse, when I think about child abuse, I think about somebody intentionally hurting a child because at the end of the day, that's just what they felt like doing. That's what I think about when I say child abuse. In this particular case, you have a father who we can agree or disagree on what he used to discipline, and certainly how often he did it. But at the end of the day, I look at it as what was the intent. And when you look at Adrian Peterson, so from everything that we know about him, what he's at least admitted, the intent was simply to correct. Like I said, did he go too far? Yeah, he went too far. But his intent was to correct. And so if we're looking at his intent, we can certainly, talk about how far he went. But let's look at intent before we decide, well, you're a child abuser simply because you used a switch and you left bruises. Like at the end of the day, we'd be heartfelt. We'd be what's the word I'm looking for? We'd be disappointed if 16 years from now that same kid is out doing a whole bunch of crimes and Adrian Peterson didn't do nothing. We'd be a whole lot more upset than I think than we are now that he tried and he went too far. I look at it. I was telling somebody this the other day. If you think about whoopings, right? If that's the method that you're going to do to discipline your child. If you give your child, let's say, we're going to use 20 whoopings, okay? You give your child 20 whoopings. I'm going to just say statistics are going to probably be that at least 10% of those whoopings are going to go too far. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what you're doing. 10% going to go too far because one of those times you're going to do it. They're going to do something so egregious to you that you're going to have to hit them on the spot. And that's probably going to be that one time that you go too far. So now for that one time, now you're a child abuser and, we got to decide whether or not you should potentially spend time in jail or some other kind of consequence. That's how I look at this situation. It was one time for all we know. And so we're going to send him to jail. He's a child abuser. He's everything wrong with the country.
My thing is, I can't feel any different about the situation because after the heat is put on you, because this is the second child that you've had a problem with, as far as abuse is concerned, now all of a sudden you went too far. Through those text messages with him and the mother of the second child, the 4-year-old, she asked him what happened. Oh, and he replied, after all of he hit his head on the car seat or whatever, That's exactly what he said. I didn't see I'm sorry, nothing like that on the pictures from the screenshots from the text messages. So you wait until everyone finds out and this gets leaked and now you're facing this, you're facing that. Now you want to say sorry, now maybe you went too far? Well, that just sounds like good PR to me.
What I do is now I want to put on my gun and my badge and be the police for a second. The intent was there. When he took that switch and beat that child, what was his intent? To beat that child, to hit that child. I know people say all the time, just like you said, 16 years from now, that equation has not been proven yet because just because you get beat 40 times as a child does not guarantee you're going to be a productive citizen of society because you can look at the opposite side of that. Well, what he did is just taught this young man how to, when you get upset, just beat somebody. So when you look at the equation, nothing has been proven that disciplining your child, corporal punishment, is a guaranteed true factor that you're going to be a productive citizen of society. It's not been proven. A lot of times you be careful because these kids take this, when I get mad, I'm just going to start beating somebody. Now, Adrian Peterson did what he was accustomed to doing, discipline and spanking his child. Well, that might be correct, but you got to look at the other mitigating circumstances. You are an NFL running back. You are built like the commercials say, you built Ford tough. You got a 4-year-old. Can you imagine what was going through this 4-year-old's mind while he's going through that? And again, I always like to play devil's advocate because the bottom line is we got to protect our children. And those Welch, based on the letter of the law, he was wrong. He was so much wrong that he even sent a text message acknowledging that he's wrong. So if it ever goes to a jury trial, which they're going to give him, the jury instruction says, did this person cause the inflicted pain? Yes. Were there injuries? Yes. Well, based on the letter of the law, I mean, he's going, because they're not, ignorance of the law is no excuse, and that's in the book. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, so he's dead to right. So, of course, now he got it for PR. Well, you know, he ought, man.
I'm all for beating your child. I'm all for
Don't
it.
say beating, discipline.
Discipline.
Right.
And discipline underneath that, whoopings are just as fine with me as well. I don't think him being a football player and him weighing this and him doing that should matter, only because to a 4-year-old, I'm 5'4".
Mm-hmm.
I probably look like some big, I don't know, monster to them as well, especially when I'm mad and I have all that backed up. And that's really what you're doing when you're disciplining your child, is you have this anger and you have to release it some way. And at the same time, you're saying, you know, this is for you. You won't understand now. You'll understand later. Which, I mean, those of us who did get whoopings, reasonable whoopings, I would say, we understand it now. Now, when you grow up and you kind of understand that, you know, you don't play with mama like that. Well, mama gonna get you.
Let me ask you a question. You say we don't know his intent, but at age 4, what was this child's intent?
Yeah.
What was his intent? If we take into account Adrian Peterson's, we don't know his intent. At the age of 4, which he can't even formulate, you know, on a wide range, right and wrong, was this child's intent to cause bodily harm to whomever he pushed? Mm-hmm. So you got to take into consideration, what was this child's intent? And if you can't find that he intentionally did that to cause harm, then you can't give Adrian Peterson the get out of jail free pass, saying, well, his intent was not to hurt the boy. Well, the baby's intent wasn't to hurt the boy. Catch-22, quid pro quo. You know, something for something. If his intent wasn't there, Adrian Peterson's intent, come on, man.
407-894-1680. 407-894-1680. I look at it. I always look at my experiences, and just looking back at my own experience as a child, and you guys can comment here too. I know what it's like to get a switch. I know what it's like to get beat by a switch. I know that experience when you got to go out and find go find the switch, and then you come back and the switch ain't big enough, so you got to go back and get another switch.
You think you slick?
So and then even going beyond the switch, I've had even that extension cord. I know about the extension cord too. So when I look at my past experience, well, I would never say that the switch or the extension cord is the best way to go or the right way to go, because I certainly even trying to discipline my own children, I have not gone those routes, but I at least can understand that some parents, for whatever reason, that's the route that they choose, and again, what is their intent? Are they trying to abuse their children? That's the thing that bothers me, is that he's labeled, or we're going to call him a child abuser simply because of what he used. And that's my problem, and I can't get past that. And some people say it's a cultural thing, and I don't know if it's a cultural thing. I think there's probably some white people that use switches, and that sort of thing too. So it's probably not a cultural thing, but that's what I look at, and I just can't see it. Is it different in 2014? Is that like, wow, I can't believe he used the stick to beat to discipline his child? Yeah, I got you, but come on, man. In 1980, that's what they did.
Right.
In 1980, that's what they did. And so if he's looking at his life, they even talked about in one story, as it relates to Adrian Peterson, his daddy, when he was in high school, came to his high school. I don't know what he did, but he did something wrong. Daddy came to high school and gave him a belt whipping in front of his class in high school. So, I mean, if that's the kind of discipline he's used to, this little switch is like, that ain't nothing. I mean, you gotta, it's perspective, and when I think about it like that, I just have a hard time, I think it's a lot of hoopla about what I really amount to nothing. Because if you go back to his intent, I doubt you can say that he is purposely out to kill or beat his children or discipline them in some particular way. So,
let me ask you this question. Back in the day, in the 1950s, it was against the law for African Americans to share water fountains with those of Caucasian persuasion. Back in the day, it was that way, but today we don't do those types of things. Those laws today are like non-existent, right?
Right.
So it goes back in the day when we used to discipline our child. the way we did, that's the way we did it back in the day. It's not current today. So it's the same thing. Just because we did it back then doesn't make it all right now. Because right now somebody tell you can't go in that door, you got to go through the back. Man, we finna go to the throat like we finna get Ferguson around here, man. So that's what I'm saying. The people perish for the lack of knowledge. I said on Facebook, as a matter of fact today, we got to learn how to keep up with the times. That stuff is not, we can't do it now. We got to change. So if the law says you can't tear skin, or you can be punished, well, a lot of parents used to say, well, call the police on me. Okay, well, you deal with the consequences.
Well, with that being said, I think that law is in place for African Americans.
Which one?
The one where we can't beat our kids. Because most European, they don't beat their kids. They send them to time out. They talk to them. They do everything else besides beat their kids. My stepmother was European. Her 2 kids was European. And so I grew up in that family when I had to go visit them during the summer. And they don't get whoopings. Now, when I'm back with my mama and my stepdaddy and his 2 sons, we get whoopings. So I feel that law is put into play for black people. Because black people beat their kids, and white people mainly, they don't. They put them on a leash, and they make sure they don't go this far, that far. But black people beat their kids.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
If that's true, what you just said, if it's true, well, the theory that we came up with was that if you beat your kids, they won't be problems later on in life. Well, when you look at crime, if black people beat our kids, we are accountable for, I want to say, 65% of the crime, and it's higher than that. But I'm black, so I'm trying to keep it on the low. But we account for the majority of the crime.
The laws are built for us to go to jail. Also, you look at the crazy crimes. We ain't. What's the percentage of us on?
Well, what's a crazy crime?
Let's say
you can't sag your pants.
That's a crime. If you go to colleges and at BCC, you get fined if you sagging your pants.
You can go to jail now.
You go to jail for that. Now, is that law at any white school?
I can't say, but I will say this right here. Let's not deal with just a sagging. Let's talk about crime.
Name a crime then, besides marijuana, besides driving with suspended license. But let's name a real crime that we don't really.
Drug possession.
Drug possession. They got stop and frisk just for black people. They don't stop and frisk Europeans. They stop and frisk African Americans.
Well, let me ask you a question. When they stop and frisk, did we prove them right?
I don't know.
I'm going to give you from my expert opinion. If you stop and frisk me, you're not going to find anything. You go down on, I'm going to give you Kaylee and the trail if you stop and frisk. Because one thing I've learned is that if you, just say over in Ellsworth, if the police get out and they do proactive patrol, and that includes checking out with the people walking up and down the street, interacting with them, doing all those types of things, they call that good police work. But when you go down to, in my neck of the woods, the Winter Garden, Pine Hills, or Kaylee and the Trail, when the police jump out and interact with the police and try to be police, they call that harassment. Because in those neighborhoods, which I'm talking about the predominantly black neighborhoods, they don't want the police to bother nobody. Don't bother us. Don't do this right. It's because you're racial. So the police really have to take a stand back because they don't want that negative publicity. Well, you understand now when I can't bother you, and I'm still saying, now, there are some bad police, and I know Jay Real going to get into that. That's real. But when I can't get out and be a police, get out and talk to you and do all those types of things, then I can walk freely with my dope in my pocket and my gun in my waistband. You understand what I'm saying? So you got to get aggressive with this. Orlando's number 2, if I'm not mistaken, in violent cities in the state of Florida. Orlando's number 2. We're in the top 5. And then in the state, I think we rank number 5. So we got to get aggressive with this thing because whether you believe it or not, I work in homicide. And I get tired of going to a scene, looking at somebody who looks just like me, shot in the head, dead, and all those types of things. And then you ask, man, I ain't see nothing. Well, dude, you was standing right next to him when he got shot. Man, I ain't talking.
But I guarantee you, if you ask his parents, did he get whoopings as a kid? I bet they say no.
Talking about the dead guy?
The dead guy. That's seriously. Because most kids don't get whoopings no more. No, most parents feel like, well, I'm not, whooping is really a lost art. I know me. I look at me. I used to get whoopings, man. I used to get whoopings with the switches, with the stitching cords, with the iron, some little plastic thing my daddy used to have. I don't know what it was, but I used to get whoopings. And if it wasn't for those whoopings, now I don't know about 4 years old. I can't even remember, but I don't think I was getting no whoopings at 4 years old. So I'm not defending Adrian because I'm with you, man. 4 years old, what was the man doing at 4 years old to get it like that? But as I got older, to 6th grade and got suspended 22 times, you best believe I was getting some whoopings. I couldn't sit down because, and if I was able to sit down, I probably would have did something bad. But if I couldn't sit down, I reminded me, don't let me do that. At least let me leave the paraphernalia at home. It made me think because my booty hurt. But nowadays, it's not like that. Nobody booty is hurting. They just kind of like, well, that's just what it is.
So is that a reason Orlando is the number 2 in violent crimes because we're not disciplining our kids now?
I think that we're not whooping them enough, in my opinion. I really believe that. I don't know, at 4 years old now, that's a different story. Right. But once they get of a certain age, I would say middle school, whoopings come into play. Like, honestly, you really time out. I mean, name a way to discipline your child that they respect the disciplinary action besides a whooping, because I can't think of nothing. With black kids, white kids and black kids have 2 different personalities, 2 different mindsets, so you really have to come at it 2 different ways. But once they get in middle school, then it's a different story. Now, before middle school, man, I don't know what that brother was doing. And I really feel like, the NFL kind of put some kind of stuff in them that get them a little upset. Same thing with Ray Rice situation, when they temper flares and, like you say, they do something and make them snap, and then he probably went off the deep end because of some kind of, medicines that the NFL has given him.
Steroids.
Them steroids, that's what I'm trying to say. The steroids that the NFL has given him, maybe that's what happens. And, the NFL was getting sued because a lot of the retired players were still on painkillers and things to that nature because of what the NFL had given them throughout the year. Right. And so that really changes their personality to be a lot more aggressive.
But to be fair to those individuals, gladly took that medication.
There you go.
Because at the end of the day, a player wants to play, and so if I gotta take this shot of cortisol in order to play, then that's what I'm going to do. Now, yeah, you're right. If you take cortisol shots, 16 times in the year to play football, yeah, you're probably going to have some problems by the time you get 40 or 50 years old. But at the end of the day, yes, they gave it to them, but they willingly, at that particular time, took those shots. Just like at that time when they were getting concussions, and they have a concussion in the middle of in the second quarter, but in the fourth quarter, they're like, man, they need me. And they were like, well, let me get back out there. And they were like, yeah, all right, go ahead. The players themselves are culpable too. And going out there. Now, you can argue whether or not the NFL should have been more proactive in stopping them, but at the end of the day, they're players. Players want to play, and they want to play because it's at the end of the day that whole sport, that whole mentality of most people who play that sport is that warrior sport, and warriors fight. They fight to the end, if you will, and it is what it is.
And I think that's what happened with Adrian. Him being a warrior, he kind of just got very upset. I don't know what could have done, what could have made him click to go to that level, but he was dead wrong, in my opinion. For a 4-year-old, like you said, after we saw the pictures, it's like, man, no 4-year-old stole a car or hit a kid, or even if you push a kid, that's what kids do. You don't really beat them to that degree. You really should have talked to him like a man and let him know, hey, I can talk to you verbally. Because, again, my dad did that also. Depending on what I did, if I came home with a progress report that was bad, I got a whooping. Now, if I did something around the house, he talked to me like a man. Like, this is what we're going to do. This is what you need to do. Now go to your room and read that history book or something to that nature. But if it was dealing with school, I got my butt whooped.
Well, I say this right here. Same in my house. When we start talking about if Adrian Peterson was motivated by these PEDs, performance-enhancing drugs, then he's still wrong. He's still wrong because now you on a drug. What if that drug would have been, the chemical imbalance would have triggered you to do something more aggressive? So if it came out and I was on the jury and it suggested Adrian was, the PEDs had him acting like that. Well, it's equivalent to people killing people when they're stoned out. When it doesn't matter. Now, I say this, back in the day when football players used to play and they used to get concussions back in the day, they used to make them play. Just play. You got a concussion, so what? Your ankle broke, so what? Well, nowadays, if you get a concussion, you're out three, whatever, because times are changing. So if he was motivated by a PED, a drug that had him more, which I'm going to be honest, I've taken these, and I'm not taking steroids, but I've taken these muscle builders, so to speak. They mess with your immune. They mess with your psyche, if you will. And if that's the case, man, you dead wrong. You even worse now. If a drug is motivating you to show out on this sun, and if you're not consistent with your discipline, you're failing anyway. You can't beat me to death on Monday, then Tuesday I do the same thing, and it's all good. But when no, man.
Well, let me ask you this: what's a suggestion for discipline besides the switch that you would suggest? For your children, or for the audience that's listening, what would you suggest?
Well, am I European or I'm just black now? Because you done clearly said it's two different types.
You're black. I'm saying for black people. For Europeans, we know what they do. They tie their kids up and they don't let them go but 15 feet.
In my opinion, and again, my opinion does not reflect J Real Family Talk, does not reflect WOKB, none of that stuff right there.
Right.
And the sheriff's office.
Disclaimer.
Right, disclaimer. I will say this right. There is a way to discipline your child. My son, open hand. Pop, 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 pop. But don't get to the point where you just lost control. Because after the third, fourth, pop, 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 pop. Now, come on now. It's like beating a dead horse. Because the Bible teaches us, spare not the rod. I believe in all that stuff. But when I'm beating you and now all of a sudden I see blood running down your leg,
I need to stop.
I need to stop. You know.
That ain't stop my parents. Well, they was getting me. And I'm light-skinned, so you know.
It was bad then. It was bad then.
He was bad. That's what
no wonder you went to Europe, because in Europe you was able to do that kind of stuff. We good.
And I mean, all kids are different. All kids learn differently. Some kids' whoopings actually do make a difference. This one got whooped and he knew not to act bad the next day because he could not sit down. While some kids, that means nothing to them. They will go right back out and continue to do what they were doing before. So you have to handle each situation in a certain way. So where some kids are able, they're on their electronics, take away their electronics.
Right.
You think that you have some type of space in this house, I'm going to take away your door because the whooping's not going to work. Okay, now you have no door. Now what? So you have to find different ways. You have to find creative different ways to kind of get your point across. If you're trying to teach them a lesson, then you need to find different ways to that, because you're right, whooping does not always solve everything.
Right. And it's about, once you learning your own kids, if you know what motivates your kid, then that helps you figure out how to discipline your kid. Because if you take those things that motivate them away, then that will hopefully inspire them to do right so that they don't lose those things. I had someone tell me one time that I remember I think it was a Cosby episode where they took a door off or something like that. But I was talking to someone and they talked about how in their house there was an issue with there were all girls in the house, and so they would slam doors. So the dad put those accordion doors.
Oh wow!
On the door. So kept the doors though, oddly enough, because years later they put them back on. But they put the accordion doors on to solve that problem. So you just have to know your kids and understand what your kid responds to, and maybe you use a whooping sometimes, and maybe you take the iPod away sometimes, and figure out what works, and that's what you do. But I just, at the end of the day, I just feel I feel some type of way about being called a child abuser though, in this particular case. I just do. I just feel some type of way about, and then even how we're responding to it. I understand that a lot of that has to do with what happened with the Ray Rice situation. Is really the reason why they're responding to the Adrian Peterson situation the way that they are. But I just think it's just out of hand. Even listening to some of the commentators, you listen to some of these old players, and that it's going off. It's just
Chris Carter.
Chris Carter had a one where he just went off, and it was just like really. Really, Chris, you used to do all kind of drugs when you was in the league, bruh.
But
come on,
you have to ask yourself this question too.
Come on, man.
In light of the Ray Rice situation, is there a possibility that we need to be thankful that the Ray Rice situation came about? Because if not, that child probably would still have to be going through this stuff. Because when people say, well, that was only his only incident, if that was his first time beating that child like that, way to introduce him to this corporal punishment. That was crazy. So I'm going to believe that this has been going on for a while. It just got out of control. And if that's the case, he's starting to escalate now. He's starting to escalate now because today just tore the skin. Tomorrow, if he's on those PEDs, he punching the kid. No matter how you look at the situation, he was wrong based on the letter of the law.
He was.
So, child abuser. Rip his jersey off, get him out of the league, and all those types of things. Now, I do say he
clearly
could be,
AP is not on his fantasy team.
Hey, the sad thing about it is I'm not making jokes about the child because, granted, I'm not going to do that. But man, the guy was playing that fantasy football. He had Adrian Peterson.
Oh,
his whole season gone.
very upset.
Exactly. And plus, keep in mind that Adrian Peterson, he might lose his job or whatever. But if he's not. But he's set though.
He's good.
He's set.
He's good. I mean, end of the day, this even with the Ray Rice situation, Ray Rice just appealed his season-long or indefinite suspension, and more than likely he's probably going to win his appeal because according to the law that they created,
first time
they're wrong. At the end of the day, they're wrong, and they can't just suspend them twice like that. So unless they bow down to political and PR pressure, if you will,
which is probably going to happen.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, it's them being listened to by an outside arbitrator, so Roger Goodell has nothing to do with it. But we'll see what happens. But if they go by the letter of law, his 2-game suspension will be back in place. Now he's probably still not going to play this year, but come back next year. Oh, he's going to be on somebody's team. He's going to be on somebody's team.
Jared Jones will pick him up.
And Jared Jones. Well, I don't know. DeMarco Murray is doing really well right now, so Jared may not need him, but somebody's team going to pick him up. So we'll see, man. I just think it's crazy. I do have to acknowledge something. The Steelers did lose this week. I'm going to acknowledge every time they win. So I need to at least acknowledge, to be fair, I want to acknowledge that they lost, unfortunately. But we got spanked by Baltimore last Thursday, unfortunately. But we'll be back, man. We'll be back this week.
Well, I suggest this right here. If Ray Rice was, and sometimes you have to get personal with certain situations. If that would have been my daughter, that he Ray, because now it's a new thing. Because man, don't make me Ray Rice you.
Yeah.
That's and I think that's the sad part about it.
That we make comments.
it's been a Mel Gibson. It's been I can name a bunch of European people that did the same thing way before Ray Rice that you hear nothing about.
Well, in Atlanta, Georgia, it was a Supreme Court judge who beat his wife down.
The dude, one of the owners of Coca-Cola. Beat their wife down, but you don't. Now the black man is the face of it.
But the problem is the black man got caught on video. Right. Everybody else is just, this is what he did. Because I was on Ray Rice's side. Well, let me say this because I got a radio show.
Say it right now. You're on the side, huh?
Ray Rice, what he did. I never support domestic violence. I don't believe in that. But she was attacking him the way the story was told. But when you showed a video, man, he done.
But that was edited. You can tell from the big pixels that was edited.
Yeah, but
they edited
very well.
Yeah, exactly.
It's TMZ. They gotta make their money. Come on now.
Yeah.
But like I said, at the end of the day, he's done this year. He'll be back next year.
He'll be back next year. The thing about it is, who wants to be the poster boy for what he's for domestic violence?
That's what I found. I talked about that last week. That's what I found was wrong. He should not be the poster boy for domestic violence.
And that's like you say, don't get Ray Rice. Like, come on, man. It's been tons of white people that did it before him. But like you say, it wasn't no cameras.
It wasn't no cameras.
It wasn't no cameras in those days.
And he will be the poster child.
Until somebody else do it.
All right.
There was no cameras when Chris Brown beat up Rihanna. And you was still that there was still that term. Don't get Chris Brown.
But you got the pictures of Rihanna. You got the pictures. So now we got people in this world here. We're visual. We want to see. So when you show me Rihanna, whatever her name is, I was in awe. I'm like, oh my God, this girl was beat that bad. So when you give me pictures, it changes the whole scheme of things. Just like when he showed me the pictures of the 4-year-old.
Right.
I'm like, whoa.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So when we visual people, if you show it to me, then that's a different issue.
And that's what we were actually talking about last week, about should the situation have changed how you felt about it before the video was released.
It really did, though. Because like you say, we felt a certain way because we know our experiences with getting spankings and whoopings. But like you said, after we saw those pictures, and then we was like, hold on, this brother is 4 years old. That was a little too far.
I saw Chris Shaw stepped into the building.
Brother Shaw.
He apparently has something to say. What's up, sir?
I know. It's hard to deal with as a 4-year-old child. I don't care whatever the case may be, whatever the child did. If the child got in somebody's car and started driving, I can expect you to whoop your child. But there's a difference between abuse and discipline. And a lot of people don't have that concept. They don't understand that concept. Adrian Peterson said, I only did what I knew how to do because of the way I was raised. And that's just the way he was raised. If his mom picked up a chair and broke it across his back every day, then that's what he know how to do. At some point in time, I heard you talking about the pills and everything that they might be taking or whatever the case may be. That could play a role. But then too, at some point in time, when you growing up, you say to yourself, my mama did me like this. I'm not going to treat my child like that at some point in time. And, you might find yourself in that situation and you might recall what happened to you growing up. So I'm not condoning what Adrian did at all whatsoever, but what he could have done was stop and check himself, because we all need that reality check. My question is, what was the mom at? What was the auntie at? What was the brother at? Or somebody else? There was nobody else around to just say, hey, man,
I don't know who was
chill.
around, but the mother of the child was in Minnesota. Because he's not with that mom. That's just one of the kids. So the mother of the child was back in Minnesota.
That's why the text message
apparently goes to Houston in the off season, and that's where the incident happened.
And she said something about it. That's why she was texting and was like, what was this about? But and like I say, like he was saying, if the Ray Rice situation wouldn't have happened, I still think this would have came to light, because this is the second situation
that he's been involved in.
The second one.
Right.
So I mean, without the Ray Rice situation, I think this would have came to light, and I'm glad it did, because like you say, who knows how far it could have went beyond where it was at if it didn't get brought to light.
And we're gonna move on here, but I do have a problem with those types of statements, because even like with the Ray Rice situation, all we really know is what we know about what they've told us. Any other thing we make up or speculate on is just that speculation. And for me, I find it difficult to try and speculate further what is going on or what has happened in the past or where this could be going. People can make mistakes. It is possible for a person to make a mistake, realize the mistake that they made, and then not make that mistake anymore. That is possible. And so, we don't know that these people will do that. We don't know that that's what's going to happen in these situations. But I hate the speculation that, well, if it happened like this, what's going to happen in the future. Like, no, we don't know. We don't know. And when we're doing that, to me, we're adding our own emotions and feelings about those situations, as opposed to talking about what the situation is. And I think we have to be careful with that, because I think that's what got us here where we are today. That's why it's such a big deal what happened with Adrian Peterson, why it's a media circus that the NFL players are out of control. Really, they're not out of control. I mean, this is society.
I guarantee
everything that they're doing in the NFL
no
is a referendum on what happens in society. These people, just because they play in the NFL, the NBA, they're actors in Hollywood, they're not immune from society. They're still in society. I think the bigger problem that we have, and why these stories blow up, is the fact that we put these types of people on pedestals, and we look at them to be the guidance of where people should be and how we should live our lives. And I think that's the issue, because most of these men that we're doing this to are 20-something-year-old people. They're 20-something. You think about the NFL. You go to the NFL, you got to play 3 years in college. So by the time you make it, you're about 21. You're 21. You signed a $4 or $5 million, not per year at that age, but you're making $4 or $5 million over the course of a few years, and really, I'm expecting you to. Honestly, I'm surprised when they make great decisions. That's how I feel about it. Really? I'm like, wow, you made a great decision today.
Wow. Really? I'm disappointed in you, Jerry.
Because they're 20. 20-year-olds are not supposed to be what we look up to and what we should be aspiring to. Our kids included. That's not what they should be looking to.
Why
and
not?
aspiring.
Thank you. Let me ask you, why not? Because if my daughter is at 21, I respect and I'm proud of her. I'm raising her up to be the best model citizen in this world. So at 20 years old, I'm expecting her to make the best decision that's going to affect her life for her to grow even better or grow even more. So as Tim Tebow, my dog, my man, I'm not a Gator fan at all, but Tim Tebow, when he made the statement the year that they lost that game, he said, "I'll take full responsibility. I guarantee you I'm going to work the harder than anybody on this team, and we're going to come back next week and we're going to win, and we're going to win here out." And did he not follow through? Yeah, he did.
Because he knew the schedule. He knew they weren't playing nobody 3 or 4 games. So, I mean,
but, it's just a mere fact that at that age he was at.
Right.
I'm expecting
I get as parents, that's what we want. But like I said, look at that. We just go back to looking at our own lives.
And that's what I was going to say.
And if you look at,
look at mine.
There you go. There's my point right there. That's exactly my point. And this brother didn't have great. You didn't make $1 million at 21 years old. So you couldn't do it with the 10 or 15,000 you made at 21. But you expect this man to do it with $1 million. That's all I'm trying to say. People.
I get what you said.
But let's move on.
You always expect the best out of everybody.
You do.
And Charles Barkley said it best. I'm not a role model.
Not a role model.
Your parents are your role model, and that's what some parents just it is.
I was a role model at 21. Thank you.
Me too, and I didn't go to Europe.
And I didn't think. I was in London and Paris.
Man, I wanted to move on, man. I brought Brother E here tonight because we were talking. We wanted to talk about the police aspect of all of the situations that we've been dealing with recently. We got Ferguson going on. We have what happened in New York going on. And of course, these are kind of typical situations that we see across the country happening to young black males. I mean, in addition to those two, you had a couple incidences where young black males got shot. There's one incident, I can't remember the state right now. The young man was handcuffed in the back of a police car and still got shot dead. Like, how you get shot dead in the back of the police car handcuffed? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't get it. It's interesting. But then, of course, they had another incident in St. Louis. And so to kind of spark the conversation off, my question, and I understand you don't speak for the police department across the country,
right?
But from your perspective, a lot of these situations are dealing with white officers dealing with young black males. Mm-hmm. Do you see from your side any specific issues that occur? Is there truly some fear that's out there when it comes from white police officers dealing with young black males? I mean, what do you have to say about that?
Let me just say this right here, and again, the disclaimer is still in effect. This is my own personal opinion. I've trained police officers, and when I trained, we was on South Orange Blossom Trail talking about the trail on midnights. Let me just say something. Any cop that tell you that I'm not afraid of anything, you watch that person. There's always a fear in all law enforcement officers. I don't care who you are. When I went to work at night on midnight, my goal was to come back home, period. Because whether people believe it or not, cops do have families.
Right.
I had a person tell me one time, man, they saw me in the store. Once I take off all that gear, I'm not that big of a person. But when you put all that stuff on, so I said that to say this right here. Now, there are some bad cops out there. And when our young brothers get shot and killed, I'm very concerned. But when you tell the story, and I said this on Facebook one time, we can get mad, we can get violent, and all that getting, make sure we get an understanding. Mm-hmm. Make sure we get an understanding. Because there's some bad apples out there walking up and down this street, and don't nobody like that. I don't like the police when I'm not working. So when you got to be careful, when you out there and you dealing with these dudes, you don't know, because they don't want you to check them, they don't want you to frisk them, they don't want you to do nothing. But I'm sitting up there telling you, hey, sir, we got to call. So, man, these boys are dangerous. Mm-hmm. These boys are absolutely dangerous. So if it comes down to it, and I'm going to end on this, if it comes down to it where one of us got to go, if I beat you to the draw, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. Now, I'm not condoning shooting out African-American men. I'm very totally against that. But I look at the whole picture because God has blessed me to be on both sides of the fence. Remember, I grew up on Mercy Drive in the Palms, and I grew up there, Winter Garden. I grew up there, so I know what it's like. But man, I'm telling you, J-Real, it's scary out there. And some of these white officers aren't accustomed to. I had one guy tell me he's never been called in his life. I said, well, dude, make a left right here. As soon as you get out the car, that's the common lane, because these officers are not trained, and this isn't a training that you can teach in the academy, because in the academy it's a controlled environment.
Right.
Out there on that street, you don't know what you're gonna get. One time we arrested this guy, and the guy said, man, you might as well call backup. And it was a white officer, and he asked me, he says, what should we do? And I whispered back to him, do what he just told you to do. Call for backup. Because these dudes they will hurt you. They have no remorse. They don't care. And remember, police officers, we're trained when you see gunfire, your job tells you to run. My job tells me to go to it. You see what I'm saying? So there's a difference. That's the way in Ferguson, a person asked me, they don't got to be up there with the shotguns and the machine guns shooting tear gas. So my question is, well, what the cops supposed to show up with belts in their hand? You know what? These dudes throw rocks, they looting, they doing everything, and we don't know what they have on you. So, man, I always tell people, man, it's a shame what they're doing, but in everything, make sure we get an understanding of what's really going on, because, you know, that's like with Trayvon Martin. I went to every rally in the world, but if you ask me, did George Zimmerman had a right to shoot and kill this boy? If Trayvon was beating him up, well, the law says if life or death, I can kill you based on the law. That's why they had to find him not guilty. And that's what goes on in Ferguson. If they, people, man, the guy had his hands up and he was going out and got his pow, 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 pow. I'm almost certain that didn't happen that way because there was too many witnesses out there. You know what I'm saying? But if it did happen that way, J. Real, prosecute that police officer. But if that boy was beating up on that police officer like some media outlets have suggested, man.
And that's because I commented too when the Trayvon Martin thing was going on. I mean, yes, you look at how they tell the story, and certainly I think there were some aspects of what George Zimmerman did were wrong, but if at some point they did have a confrontation and he was on the losing end of that confrontation, I'm like you, that changes the whole situation for me to say, at the very least, okay, yeah, he was wrong for tracking him or whatever the case may be, but at that point where Trayvon showed anger and apparently or possibly was beating on him, at that point they were quote unquote equal, if you will, and kind of what happens, because we live in a society, especially if you're in Florida. It's I'm not saying it's easy to get a concealed weapons permit, but if you can pass a background check,
Stand Your Ground suggests that I don't have to retreat. Stand Your Ground says if you coming at me and I got my gun, I don't have to no longer have to run.
Right.
The problem is not the action; it's our legislature that put this Stand Your Ground in place. Those are the people that went and voted that thing without taking in consideration it was going to backfire on us. So when people start going about this thing in Ferguson and all those types of things, a police officer, I have a right that's been given unto me that President Barack Obama does not have. And that right is, if I feel like your life is in danger, I can kill him and be justified. Every day I wake up in the morning, I have life and death in my hands. I got life and death in my hands now, I keep it on my hip. It says that if at any time, no matter day or night, whether I'm on duty, off duty, in plain clothes and uniform, I can take your life if I feel like you're a threat to cause great bodily harm to anybody in this building. That's the right that's given unto me. The president don't have that. You know what I'm saying? So as a cop, I got to be very mindful of what I have. I can't be loose and just negligent with it, because if I'm negligent, by all means, prosecute me. But if I'm doing right, and we walking down the street and somebody got a knife to your throat, bam, 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 because a cop have a split second to make a life-changing decision. If you pull a gun on me, I don't have time to determine, okay, what's your intent? Are you going to kill me? Is that gun real? I don't have that. You pull a gun on me, bam, 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 and that's it. We have a split second, just like that, to make a life-changing decision. So that officer in Ferguson, he has to deal with, because they released his name. And I'm like, why would you do that? Because when you release my name, you put me in danger, which, who cares about you? You just killed somebody. Well, I got a family, don't got nothing to do with that. So, that situation in Ferguson, man, I feel bad about it, but I want people to, let the facts come out.
Yeah.
Because, in the Trayvon, in media, in Trayvon Martin, for the first month and a half, they showed Trayvon Martin as being this little good kid, his little middle school picture.
Yeah.
And you be like, oh, my God, how can he do that? Man, the truth be told, Trayvon was 6'3". Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying?
A whole lot,
right.
6'3".
So,
a lot of 6'3".
Remember in Mac Brown case, they showed, he had his hands up. Then they go show you the video with him in the store, taking this little man and throwing him. Well, that's robbery. That's robbery by force.
But what does that have to do with him literally having his hands up, saying that he does not have anything on him?
But it depends on who's telling the story. Who are you going to believe?
But I don't understand what him doing at the corner store has to do with justifying the cop.
Let me explain it to you. Okay, if that cop had knowledge that a robbery had just took place, because it was a robbery, when he went in there and snatched that stuff, and that guy tried to stop him, and he took the guy and threw him which is what the camera suggests, that he threw that guy down and walked out of the store. Now you just committed a crime. So we can determine from the video that he is aggressive. because of what he did to the guy. So if that cop engaged him and he became aggressive towards that cop and came at him in any kind of way, and that cop felt like his life was in danger, then the law says that he can do what, if he was in fear for his life, he can do what he did. But if this guy was on the ground and he was going down and the cop shot him, well, by all means, sister, he's dead. And the cop is wrong. He's wrong. But we don't know everything because it depends on who you listen to.
Of course, of course.
But see, I tell people all the time, police officers, firemen, or whatever the case, their lives are on the line on a daily basis. I grew up in the ghetto. I grew up in the hood, and we are not scared of 5-0 at all. 5-0 pull us over. We look, what's your problem, dude? Step out the vehicle if you want to do. Let's make it do what it do. That's just the way I grew up. And a lot of these guys that I know over in Texas, California, Atlanta, Georgia, just to name a few, these people are not scared of cops. So the police really lives are in a dangerous situation, whether they go into a situation where it's 5 or more or whether it's 2 or more. You don't know what's going to happen, and they have to make that split decision within a matter of seconds before being justified for whatever reason. I'm not condoning what happened in Ferguson. What happened is what happened, but like you said, all the facts ain't out. Everybody don't know all of the truth, just like everybody didn't know all the truth with Ray Rice. You still don't know all of the truth with Adrian Peterson. So, let the facts play out first before you go forth and, make that judgment. But then, too, I'm not saying just sit back and be lackadaisical about it. Okay, well, we need to know what happened. I need to know what's up. Talk to me and let me know so I can let the people that's listening to me know.
And I think what concerns people, too, is, I like to look at Trayvon Martin, especially when you're talking about what happened in Ferguson, when you talk about what happened to Sean Bell, Eric Garner. Those situations, to me, they're different. And so in those situations, a lot of them happen where, at least from the facts that we have on, we can look at a case like Sean Bell. For all intent and purposes, there was no aggression shown, but of course there is death. And so I think that's what, when people get concerned about how police treat young black males, I think those are the situations that really get kind of highlighted, because it's like, wait a minute, he wasn't doing anything wrong. For all intents and purposes, it appears that he was doing exactly what you told him to do. So now why is he dead? Well, and I think that's where people are just like, when people look at all the rallies that are happening, and then they look at what happens when people riot, and I think what a lot of people, well, I think a lot of black people understand, but outside the community, I think what they miss is when those people riot in Ferguson, yeah, they're upset about Michael Brown, but at the same time, they're thinking about Michael Brown, they're thinking about Sean Bell, they're thinking about, Eric Garner, they're thinking about, thousands of young black males that have seemed to have died senseless at the hands of police.
Well, let me ask you this
some
question.
of them anyway. We're going to say some of them. Not
Well, let me
all
ask
of
you
them.
this
Some of
question.
them just trying to get a free TV.
J-Real, let me ask you a real deep question. That's right. Those guys that died at the hands of the police. But if you flip the strip and go on the other side of the country, Chicago, you getting 25 a week.
On a day.
On a day. That's what we need to be rioting about when they killing, Chicago had like 500 or 600 homicides in 1 year.
Yeah.
That's what we need to be
Chirac,
rioting. Right. So why in the world, granted, I'm all for, if the cops kill somebody and it's dead wrong, I'm all for that. Let's do what we can. But let's look at the real picture. We kill each other and it's all good.
There's no problem.
It's no problem at all. But when a cop kills a black, then we got issues. And it bores me because, dude, the problem is us. And if you think about it, we were rioting and everything. Trayvon Martin, this is the most Trayvon Martin been talked about all week, just because the way I look at it, when white America see us, let them riot. Let them do what they can. And this too shall pass. It'll burn out. Just let them do what they gotta. They're gonna riot. They're gonna tear up stuff. Look in Ferguson, everything good now.
Well, everything ain't good. We just got a lot of deflections. Like we got the Ray Rice deflection and we got the Adrian Peterson deflection.
But why do we have deflections when?
Because they won't let the media talk about it. You got to go on Twitter just to hear about what's going on in Ferguson.
But you know what? But if we take a trip to Chicago, well, don't go to Chicago. Take a trip on Orange Blossom Trail.
I'm not going to Chicago. I'm scared of Chicago.
Yeah, you from Europe. I don't understand. Y'all don't do that over in Europe.
I've heard about Chicago. Like people, I heard the police don't even go to certain towns in Chicago.
There you go.
Get off Chicago.
Well, you look like you from Chicago.
I just don't understand how people, like you were mentioning Chicago, I don't understand how that can justify another wrong. They're both wrong. In the end, if you look at it, they're both wrong. And it's not to say that we kill each other and we we don't do anything about it. It's done. Just like there's many cases that don't even make it to the media. It really just depends on who's behind it, shining the light on what's really going on. And then that's when people start to tune in. That's when you start to care. And then that's when you start to make other moves, marches and all these other things to fall into that. But two wrongs do not make a right. And by justifying, you can't justify a wrong with another wrong.
But the thing about it is, with the Michael Brown thing, was there a wrong?
We don't know, right?
There you go. So in all that getting, make sure
until
we
know, I can't just sit on. I'm not just going to sit down and wait until
video?
all news are
That's
out.
what I want to know. Where's the discovery video? Because I'm sure it's cameras on the cop car. I know it's cameras on the cop car.
Well, let me just
at the corner with the
but
light.
let me just show this. If there's a camera on a police car, that camera focuses straight ahead. If the incident happens to the left, then the camera is just a camera just
cameras on the lights.
On the lights. I don't know what they have out there. But just because there's a camera, cameras don't catch everything.
They caught Ray Rice.
Well, that's because he was in the elevator.
That's because he was in Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. He was in Vegas. Yeah, exactly.
But
Vegas is like New York. You
I
can't do
understand
that.
where you're coming from, but you got to look at our society that we live in today. I'm gonna put it perfect just like this. You walking down the street, it's 3:00 in the afternoon. You see 5 brothers standing on the corner, and you got to walk straight through them. Are they gonna holler at you? Are they gonna try to hit on you?
Well,
Are they gonna try? I'm just saying.
Toot my own horn, but I don't know. Probably
9 times out of 10, yes, you'll get hit on. But if you go into a predominant, let's say Windermere, if you go into Windermere, you got 5 brothers standing on the corner. Well, not brothers. You got 5 Caucasian persuasion standing on the corner, and you walking through. They'll just probably back on up and just let you walk on by.
A man is a man.
I doubt that too.
Nothing behind
they
the
may
colors.
Not say
a man
nothing
is a
to
man.
her, but they're gonna say something like, "Oh, look at that sister." They're gonna say something to each other.
They'll say something,
But
right?
Not to her.
But not to her, though.
But like
That's
that,
not fair to
that's
say
saying
that,
like
though.
like I say, black people, white people, men definitely are two different mindsets. We're gonna look at the woman,
That's the
but
point
how
I'm
we
making, though.
handle it are two different ways,
Right.
and that's just
That's the point I'm making. It's 2 different scenarios, 2 different types. Was in the hood, we are stereotyped by the police. They automatically, okay, well, look, you pull over a black car with tinted windows and some 20s. I automatically we finna search this car. We searching this car, but you get the same kind of vehicle, but you got white brothers in there. It's a possibility they might get searched, and it's a possibility they won't get searched.
If you put them in the hood, they're going to get searched.
In the hood?
Yeah, if you put the white brothers in the hood with 20, yeah, they're going to get searched. But, again, it goes back to it. Different strokes for different folks. I've been there. You driving down the street and the wheels spinning and then, y'all hanging all out of the window and there's just something wrong with that car. And 9 times out of 10, Classic weekend. If you stop 10 cars on Colonial Drive, if you stop 10,
go ahead.
How much weed you think you're going to find?
Now, you said that Classic weekend. Now, what about January 1st? All them people that be drinking and driving. All of them be walking around with beer and liquor. Don't nobody say nothing. I see the police drinking. Cause I'm out there with barbecue boys. I'm out there with them.
But I got you right here,
ribs.
though. Now, let me throw it back in here. One thing I've learned on Classic Weekend, and I argued that one time, but in Classic Weekend, when we drive down the street, we swerving all over the road, just doing all that. You just said when you're walking, there's a difference.
Well,
I'm drinking and walking. We drinking and driving.
What you say, different strokes for different folks?
Right. So, we used to talk about that. When you walking down the street, Classic Weekend, they swerving, doing all this crazy stuff. But when UCF was at Citrus Bowl for their games, they get in the parking lot and they drunk as a skunk, but they all right there. Come on, man. We a mess. They just call it what we just a mess.
We're not a mess. We like the show.
Yeah,
we like the show.
We do like the show.
And that's just what black people, everything is a party.
I've made the argument too, because I think, at least in some situations, a lot of the problem is how we respond to police when they do stop us. And I think that's one thing that we have to, teach our young boys when they're growing up and they can be encountering us. We have to be careful in how we respond to the police. You want to talk to the police just like you respect that elder person in your family. And I think if you at least approach it that way, 9 times out of 10, there's going to be some kind of positive that probably comes out of it, in the sense that there's not going to be a negative event. But if you come at them and you're already negative, then you can pretty much guarantee you're going to get some negative back, and who knows where that's going to lead. And so I think that's where it sort of begins and ends with us is we have to be careful in how we interact initially, because that will certainly determine what the outcome will be in the final situation. And if we at least start off right, the chances are that we'll at least end right. And to that point, I mean end and walk away without any particular incident, because, you know, sometimes they're going to be wrong for stopping us. Sometimes they're going to be right for stopping us. But if we're cool-headed and calm then every time we should at least be walking away. And I think that's kind of what we have to do. And like you said, Brother E said, we definitely need to check ourselves, because it starts with us. If we can change how we do in the community, then we can see how a change in how they respond to us as well. And we want to thank y'all for listening to us. We want to thank Brother E, Mr. King, Chris Shaw. He stayed late again, y'all. He's gonna have to call home about that. Well, we love Chris Shaw though, man. We love Chris Shaw. Hey man, we'll talk to y'all next week. Same time, 9 p.m. WOKB 1680 AM, your urban empowerment inspiration station.
WOKB, Winter Garden, Orlando.